If you've hit product market fit for your SaaS business and you've started to generate revenues, but you're not quite there yet on building that scalable go-to-market machine, the type of go-to-market machine that can take you to 1 million, 3 million, 10 million of ARR in a predictable way, in a scalable way, then it's time to start thinking about your go-to-market strategy. Now, I have worked with hundreds of SaaS founders on their go-to-market strategy. I've taken my own companies to new heights with a scalable go-to-market machine. But here's the thing, a lot of founders confuse the difference between what goes into the go-to-market execution versus the actual go-to-market strategy. A lot of founders, especially at that scale phase, they need to do more. But in reality, when you have the right strategy, you can actually do less and yield better results. So in this episode, I'm gonna walk you through the key principles that you absolutely need to know on building out your go-to-market strategy. And the way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna show you my exact go-to-market strategy template that you can recreate at home and implement. And when you implement these principles and build out your scalable go-to-market machine, you will be able to accelerate your path to that next stage of growth. Intro. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK, and on this channel, I help SaaS founders like you grow your SaaS businesses faster with an unstoppable strategy. Now, if you're new to this channel, welcome. I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So if you're new, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon. You'll get notified every single time I drop an episode with the TK energy. Now, if you're already part of this community, if you're part of my SaaS go-to-market coaching programs, my people, welcome back. It's really awesome to see you over here. In my last SaaS business, ToutApp, there was this 1 year where I learned the most about building a go-to-market machine. It was a year where we hit 1 million of ARR with a 6-person team. We raised our Series A. And in that year, we built out our team, we scaled our go-to-market machine, and in a single year, we went from 1 million to 3 million of ARR. That was the year where I learned the most about what it takes to truly scale, what it takes to be truly effective in go-to-market. And that was the year we ended up that year with raising our Series B led by Andreessen Horowitz. Fast forward to today, I've since sold that company to Marketo. I worked at Marketo as part of the executive team. We scaled that company and sold it to Adobe. Fast forward to today, I've worked with hundreds of SaaS founders on their go-to-market strategy. And in this episode, I'm gonna walk you through the exact template that I follow whenever I'm helping founders unlock growth and build out a scalable go-to-market machine that will take them to new heights at 1 million ARR, 3 million, and even 10 million of ARR. So if you're excited to dig in, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's dig right into it. The first thing you want to understand about this template, and by the way, you can recreate this at home, just take a blank piece of paper and draw this box and you can go along with me, is there's a distinct difference between strategy, which goes in this column right over here of the template, versus execution. Execution are the things that you actually do to drive demand and win customers. These are things like running outbound campaigns, or posting on LinkedIn, or running ads, or hiring an agency. All of those things are execution pieces that you're doing to generate demand and win customers. Here's the thing though, if you don't figure out the strategy to grow, especially during the scaling phase, your execution may be like firing blanks. So the biggest thing that I get to unlock for founders on this channel or when I'm coaching them inside of my go-to-market program is we dig really into what is the strategy that we're going to follow in order to drive demand and win deals. Once we have the right strategy, then we get into execution to make sure that we're following the right tactics to deliver on that strategy. There's a lot of content out there on go-to-market strategy. In fact, it can be pretty confusing. And honestly, I think it's gotten overcomplicated. So there's really 2 key pieces that I focus on in my template, especially when I'm working with founders to figure out what their go-to-market strategy should be. The first thing that we figure out is their ideal customer profile. Now, at this point, you can pretty much go into ChatGPT and say, hey, create an ideal customer profile for my SaaS company that does blank. And it will do a pretty good response of a potential ideal customer profile. The problem, and this is something that I see over and over, especially when I'm talking with founders to really figure out their go-to-market strategy with them, is that there's usually 2 or 3 different ICPs that you can go after. Other times, there are different segments of the market that you can go after. Other times, there are different competitive dynamics based on the ICP that you're following. And even more than that, sometimes the ICP is too generic, where you end up pretty much equivalent of trying to sell to everyone. So one of the biggest pieces that you need to do when you're defining your ideal customer profile is choosing between option A, option B, and option C, but also thinking in terms of the segment, the actual attributes, and the unique characteristics, your current track record, and the competition. When you start to really double click on an ideal customer profile and you start to think about the different attributes, when I work with founders, we do about 29 different attributes for an ICP. Then you can kind of look at the different ICPs and have a constructive discussion about, okay, given these different opportunities for us to get from our current revenue, let's just say you're at $300,000 in ARR and you really want to get to $1 million in ARR. In order just to get there, and let's just say you want to give yourself a year to get there or 6 months to get there, whatever it may be, in order to drive for that type of revenue growth, which ideal customer profile would be the best for us? Sometimes there's an obvious answer, but most of the time, especially when I've worked with founders, there's a really tough call to be made, which is why we look at these attributes, we stack them up, we do a detailed profile to really understand what segment of the market we want to be going after. Now, this is one of the things that I always like to highlight with founders. This is something that I like to remind myself. This is something that I learned during that year when we grew 300%. Every founder starts a company, especially if you're doing a startup, thinking that, hey, I want to really figure out how to make this $1 billion company. And what that means is there's so much opportunity. There's so many different use cases. So one of the toughest things to do as a founder is to reframe the approach to say, look, in order for us to get to $1 billion in ARR or whatever your target is, we first need to get to 1 million, and then 3 million, and then 10 million, and then 20, and then 50, and then 100. In order to get through those stages, let's first think about outside of that broader vision, how do we zoom in to think about what is the ideal customer profile that's going to get us from our current stage to that next stage of growth as quickly as possible? And this is where a true ICP exercise really comes together. Different than just creating an ICP that you think is good, you keep it in your head, and then you do everything else. Because the more intentional that you get over here, the more effective everything else is going to be for the rest of your strategy and your execution. Once you have the ideal customer profile, then comes the second piece for your strategy. The second piece is your messaging. For those of you that have watched this channel for some time, I refer to this as the manifesto. Manifesto is my proprietary framework that I follow to really figure out what your messaging should be. When you have the right messaging, it impacts everything you do on the execution side. The easiest thing it'll impact, the quickest thing it'll impact is what you put on your website. One of the most common things I hear from founders when I'm talking to them when they're at that initial stage and they're looking to scale is, oh, we're redoing our website. That's very common. A lot of times founders are redoing their website every single week. Or they say, hey, the website is outdated, it doesn't reflect what we really do, which means that they are actually leaving money on the table in terms of driving demand. The messaging, when you're intentional about it, really make sure that every outbound email that you do, every ad that you run, every LinkedIn post that you do, your website, your pitch deck, everything that you do to really communicate it in the market is intentional and effective. Sometimes the word strategy is overused. And a lot of times people say that's a waste of time. We don't really need to do that. This is why I always teach founders like, look, all strategy is making choices. We're making choices about given the limited time and the limited resources and the limited number of team members that we have in a noisy world, we're going to make choices on where we're really going to play so that we're successful. And so what you're really doing with the strategy part of this message, the messaging that you're creating, is you're making choices on what words you use to communicate your value. Now, a couple of things we really dig into when we're really figuring out the messaging. The first one is this an urgent and important problem that we're communicating? And the second thing is, do we actually have a 10x better solution? The third thing we think about is it easy to communicate? Sometimes I'll hear from folks and they'll say, hey, we have our value proposition. We understand exactly how to communicate it in the market. I'm like, cool, what is it? And then they'll talk for 10 minutes and then they'll say, that's what we do. And I'm like, cool. The problem with that is you would need to earn the right for someone to listen to you for 10 minutes in order for you to ever win a deal. And that's really tough in a noisy world, especially when you're even starting to generate demand, whether it's an outbound email or someone ends up on your website and makes a split-second decision, or you are actually posting on LinkedIn, or you're going to an event. In any one of these go-to-market execution pieces, your messaging is gonna make or break whether you earn the right to get into a sales call or a trial or even get their attention in the first place. Which is why it's super important to have a proper message for your go-to-market strategy. There are a few components that come out of the right strategy work around a message. One, you get your value proposition. It's what do you do in 1 or 2 sentences. You get a proper strategic narrative. There's probably competition. There's probably apathy. You're trying to drive urgency so you can actually craft a message that drives urgency and differentiates you. And also, the messaging goes into all of your execution pieces once you get clarity in your head. And so getting that deployed into your machine is also super important. These are the 2 big pieces. If you are looking at a template for building a go-to-market strategy, you really wanna make sure you write out your ideal customer profile and make choices. And you also wanna write out your messaging and make choices around that, specifically around the words that you're using. A lot of times, founders are doing a lot of the execution pieces, and you'll notice we haven't done any of the execution pieces. A lot of times, founders will say, look, we're gonna hire this agency and they'll do it for us. But guess what? For those of you that have hired an agency where they charge $5,000 a month with a 3-month minimum, the first thing they'll do is give you a 20-page document to fill out, which oftentimes is the strategy work. And they can't answer for you what the strategy should be. They can only execute, which is why it's super important before you really start to scale, you start to flesh these pieces out. Now, the third piece of this template is the execution, and there's some important choices to make on that as well. But before I go into that, let me just pause here for a second. Are you starting to see the power in this? Are you starting to see the power of, as you start to really think about scaling, you really need to get your go-to-market strategy right, and that is going to inform your execution. And even as you get into executing, there are choices to be made there. So if you're starting to see the power in this, if you're starting to get excited about this scale stage and really building out your go-to-market machine and your go-to-market strategy and making these choices to get to that next stage of growth, if you're starting to get excited, can I just get a yes in the comments below? And also smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. Also, if you have some questions that are coming up as you are starting to think about these pieces, put it in the comments below. I'll always answer those as well. Also, if you're at this stage where you're starting to figure out what should my go-to-market strategy be, which ICP do I pick, how do I craft my message, what channels do I go after in the execution, should I hire these people, should I hire this agency? If you need help with these pieces, this is why I created my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. It's an incredible program. It's my 6th year running it. You don't have to go anywhere right now. I'll link to it below. I'll tell you more about it at the end of this episode. But right now, let's go to principle number 3 of this template. Also, if you haven't already, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that, and so do we. We put a lot of love into these videos. Okay, principle number 3 is the execution piece. And you'll notice that a lot of times, folks are actually skipping the strategy and jumping to execution, which causes months of doing the wrong thing. But once you answer these questions, your execution is more likely to be successful. But there's some caveats here, and there's some choices to make in your execution as well. When it comes to go-to-market, one of the things that I think has gotten forgotten, especially now when I'm filming this episode, is that go-to-market has become a common term, but people have forgotten what it really entails. Go-to-market execution splits into 2 parts. The first part is marketing. This is how more people know about you today than they did yesterday. And the more effective you are in your marketing, the more people that are gonna know about what you do, why you're different, and why they should pick you beyond the competition. So by the time they're getting ready to buy, they're more likely to buy from you. Now, speaking of buying, marketing's job is to make sure that they know you. The second piece, which is why I have this line over here, is sales. Sales' job is to make sure that they actually buy from you. So these are 2 distinct parts of execution, and a lot of times people forget that. The way I teach founders on how to do this effectively is I call this a Broadway show. A Broadway show is a consistent set of sales and marketing activities that you can run so you bring your message to your ICP, that's the strategic choices you've made, so that on a consistent basis and on a scalable basis, you're able to win more customers. Now, let's pick both of these pieces one at a time because there's some nuances here that I want you to know about. The first piece about marketing is there are different ways you can go to market. The first way you can do is you can do social. You can post online and you can turn that attention to real opportunities for yourself. Another way you can do it is run ads. You can also do outbound. You can do events. You can do SEO. And you can even do SEM. As you start to really flesh this out, you take a company that's at 20 million, 50 million, 100 million, they have multiple campaigns running for each of these different channels for marketing. But when you're in the early stages, when you're really trying to get that predictability going, and maybe you don't have a marketing team, you don't even have a VP of marketing, and you're doing founder-led go-to-market, it's super important, again, to make choices on what channel you're really going to focus on. So let's be real. If you're running an outbound campaign and you're running ads and you're doing social and you're trying to get actual opportunities or trials going, well, if it's just you doing it, then you're not going to be very effective. If you have yourself and a junior marketer, maybe you can take on 2 channels, but you have to make some choices on what's our best way to win. Do we double down on one of these? Do we do 2 of these? Do we hire for this? That's another piece of your go-to-market strategy that you're gonna have to make a decision on. And then you'll have to execute on that channel on a consistent basis. Consistency is one of the biggest things with marketing. And when it comes to marketing, if you just post once a month on social, on LinkedIn, and you don't really have a way for someone that looks at that post to turn into a real opportunity, well, you're not gonna have consistency. And you're not really gonna get yield from your execution. For each of these that you pick, whether it's 1 or 3 or 10, you have to be effective at it. So you really want to figure out which of these do I pick to deploy my message to my ICP, and how do I make sure that I'm set up for success in my execution so that we actually yield results. Now, marketing's job is to get you and your prospects to discover you. Then comes sales, and sales in itself has own process. So when it comes to sales, it breaks down into one of 2 or maybe some sort of hybrid. You can have product-led sales, meaning you don't have any salespeople. Your product sells for you. In that case, you really have to have a proper product-led experience. You could also be sales-led, meaning you have actual salespeople. So marketing hands off opportunities to your sales team. Or you could have some sort of a hybrid where people start with a product-led experience and then you upsell them to more seats or a bigger version of the product through the sales team. Either way, that's a choice you also have to make. And as part of that sales, as part of that marketing, as part of that execution, you're going to have to make choices on how to be effective on the sales side as well. So for example, if you're product-led, you're doing product-led growth, you need to have a proper new user experience. You need to have a proper nurture process. You need to have proper pricing so that it's set up for product-led. People aren't going to swipe their credit card for a $50,000 product, even if it says start free trial. If you are sales-led, for example, well, you're going to need a proper sales deck. You're going to need a proper sales process. You're going to need a proper CRM set up in the right way. So for each of these, even before you get into executing, you need the right process in place, which is also part of strategy. And so a lot of times folks just jump into the marketing and say, I'm going to post on LinkedIn, I'm going to do SEO. And then they get on a sales call and just demo the product. And then they kind of hope that they win deals. But in reality, what they are doing is a bunch of execution pieces. They haven't made choices to how to be effective in this. And this is the whole power of this. This is the whole power of thinking about the strategy, the choices we're going to make to be effective instead of just doing a bunch of random things or doing 50 things in a half-assed way and then wondering, why am I not driving scale? Why am I not driving growth? The biggest thing that I've learned in SaaS, in scaling my own companies and seeing founders that are successful is when it comes to scaling, less is more. You have to do less. When you're trying to get that first dollar, you're gonna do a billion things and see what sticks. When it comes to scaling, you have to be intentional about what's our strategy, how are we gonna execute, how do we execute well, and how do we iterate from there? And that's the power of all of this. So let's recap. In order to drive scale for your SaaS business, you need to build out a proper go-to-market strategy. Now, there's a difference between strategy versus execution, but the more effective you are in the strategy, which is just making choices, the better the execution is going to be. The key pieces that you need to do is first, you need to flesh out your ideal customer profile. Not just an idea of an ICP, but really making choices on what is the segment of the market we're really going to go after and why. The second is to develop your messaging. Don't just keep changing the website. Don't just use the AI tool to write a bunch of messaging, because let's be real, if an automated AI SDR was effective in generating pipeline right out of the box, every company would be $1 billion company right now because everyone has access to those tools. So you have to be intentional about your messaging. Once you have that, then you want to run a consistent Broadway show, a consistent set of sales and marketing activities. Marketing gets more of your ICP to discover your message, and sales converts that to revenue. And you want to be intentional about what channels you go after, what it takes to be effective in those channels, and you want to be intentional about what's your sales process. If it's product-led, you need to make sure your product is equipped to sell on your behalf. If it's sales-led, you need to make sure whoever's doing sales, whether it's you or someone you're hiring, has an actual sales process they can follow that will be effective. And these are the key pieces that goes into scaling a SaaS company. And that's why I have it in my template. So now you know the exact template that I follow consistently for SaaS founders and SaaS companies in order to drive growth, in order to build a scalable go-to-market machine, in order to get to that next stage of growth. Now, what you may not know is, TK, how do I actually build out my ideal customer profile? I have an idea of a couple of different segments. I can't go after all of them. We don't have enough budget or resources or time. So which one do I pick? What you may not know is, TK, how do I craft my messaging? How do I make sure that I differentiate my messaging from the competition? So when they show up on my website, they can tell, oh, these guys are different. I need to talk to them. What you may not know is, TK, out of all these channels, what do I focus on? I'm tapping out of my network, my friendlies that bought from me, and now I need to actually go to cold people and educate them and build the trust and turn them into real opportunities. How do I do that? Which channel do I use? Which ones do I avoid so I'm not wasting time? You may be wondering, TK, what should my sales process be? How do I create a proper product-led experience or a sales process so that we win 20, 50% of the opportunities that we're working into real revenue? This is why I created my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. Inside of this program, I work with you to build out a proper go-to-market strategy and then help you execute on it so that you're able to drive growth. This is my 6th year running the program. It's an incredible program. We've shared so many success stories of founders who have gone through the program. The whole point of this program is to help you go from your current go-to-market strategy to a well-defined and scalable go-to-market machine. The way I do this is there's 3 core principles that I follow. The first is I teach you how to build out a proper ideal customer profile. This is a very specific process that I'll guide you through so that you know with certainty that you're going after the right ICP. Once you have your ideal customer profile, then comes the second pillar. The second pillar is your manifesto. Your manifesto is the framework that I follow to build out your messaging, your positioning, your value proposition, and your strategic narrative. This is what really sets you apart in the market, especially in a noisy space. Once you have these 2 pieces, you have your strategy. Then comes execution. And execution is the Broadway show. The Broadway show is a consistent set of sales and marketing activities that you can run to bring your manifesto to your ICP on a consistent basis, to bring your manifesto to your ICP on a consistent basis and turn it into real revenue. It is an incredible program. So if you'd like to work together, just go to tkcater.com/GTM. tkcater.com/GTM. On that page, you'll get all the details about the program. Now, if you'd like to work together, the one thing that I know is the better the fit, the better the results. So what we ask you to do is just fill out a little form and book a time with us. On the call, we'll figure out where you are in your SaaS business, what you're struggling with, and where you want to go. And if it's a fit, we're off to the races right away. So to book a time with us, just go to tkcater.com/GTM. One cool thing that I'm doing is over the next week, I'm taking these calls personally, just to meet as many founders as possible, make sure it's the right fit and get you onboarded. So just go to tkcater.com/GTM and all the details will be over there. Now, if you got value from this episode, which hopefully you did, if you're still watching, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. Also, if you have a fellow founder, a team member that would get value from this video, if you're part of a Slack group, a WhatsApp group with other founders, please share this video with them. I want to serve as many founders as possible. Also, I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So be sure, if you haven't already, to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon. and you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode. And lastly, remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. When you are with us, yours is going to be unstoppable. I'm TK, and I'll see you inside the SaaS Go-to-Market Coaching Program. Take care, everybody. Yeah, we're going to step it up. It's time. Whew, that felt good.